Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Silvana Kelly. I'm the Executive Director at the Breast Cancer Resource Center of Santa Barbara. As part of the BCRC's mission to provide essential support services and educational programs, we've joined with Rooted Santa Barbara County to offer monthly webinar series based on whole food and plant-based nutrition to help support optimal health and healthy living. Today's session is building flavor and boosting nutrition at every meal. We have Chris Kalinich from Rooted Santa Barbara County to present our session today, and we are grateful for her kind services with us, and also Emma Molina from Rooted Santa Barbara County joining us as well. As Emma said, we are recording the session. We will post it to the BCRC blog in a few weeks after the session is done. And we will have a question and answer session after the presentation. Okay, so thank you. Let's welcome Chris. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Silvana. I am excited to be back. This is one of my favorite things to do and one of my favorite topics. And so hopefully you'll find it both educational and entertaining. And there will be a recipe at the end that will kind of explain what we mean about building flavor and boosting nutrition. And because I'm going to be doing a presentation at the beginning, put any questions you have maybe in the chat box or at least in the back of your mind. And then we'll address those at the end of the cooking demonstration. All right, so hopefully everyone can see my screen and we will get started. Let's dive in because I want to talk about building flavor. And I say building flavor is like creating beautiful art. There will be a relationship between color, texture, and the senses, with the cook's inspiration often adding the magical element. And by that, what I mean is it's that X factor. It's what you put into the dish. So it's just as important as all the things I'll be teaching you today, is understanding that what you're doing is so good for your health when you use these whole food plants that I'll be demonstrating with. And it's you giving a little bit of part of you back to whoever you're serving your food to. And so on the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see a couple examples of some dishes, and they're beautiful in color. They're almost like artwork. And so I just want to show you that you can do this. You can build flavor and boost nutrition very easily. So what does it mean to build flavor? I use that. Chefs tend to say, let's balance flavor, but I like to think of it as a structure that I'm building when I am creating a dish or a meal in my kitchen. And so let me further explain. It's allowing the language of food to speak to us and direct us. And so I'm going to show you through maybe the color of food or the texture of food or how it's presented. It actually speaks and calls to us. It's bringing our perceptions of flavor into balanced harmony. We're going to talk about our taste buds, how they taste things, but it's so much more than that. And we'll learn that in today's presentation. We want to create harmony in our meals. And then finally, it's learning to recognize and manage the many factors that influence the flavor of a dish to create deliciousness. So let's start at the basics. Okay, if you think back to elementary school, you probably had a lesson about your taste buds and how there are these, maybe back then it was 4 tastes, but as of about the mid-80s, we actually have 5 tastes. And you'll notice there are more than 5 squares here in my slide. But let me talk about each one of them. First of all, there is the category of sweet, and that is our sweet taste buds are on the very tip of our tongue, and sweet is something that we easily can distinguish on our taste buds, and we tend to gravitate towards. And of course, I'm not talking about processed sugar when I'm talking sweet. I'm talking whole foods and plant-based foods. And so for here, I thought the easiest identifier for you to recognize is fruits, and perhaps dried fruits because they have been very concentrated down and the sugars are even more intense in dried fruits. But I'm going to show you even more in some of the next slides of foods that we can use to meet that sweet taste. Of course, the next one, I have a salt container there, so it kind of gives it away, but there are actually very nutritious foods that are salty. And salty is something that every chef, usually at the end of creating a dish, they may sprinkle a little bit of salt because it intensifies our taste buds to whatever the salt is put on. Sour. This is where we introduce a little bit of acidic quality. And I'm demonstrating here citrus fruits. Citrus fruits are a wonderful way to not only add acidity, that tang we kind of crave a little bit in our foods, but also with citrus foods, we get a lot of vitamin C, which is a powerful antioxidant. And bitter. And you're probably going, bitter, Chris, really? We want bitter in our foods? Well, actually, some of the healthiest foods fall into the bitter category. And bitter can be a good thing when we harmonize it and balance it with some of these other tastes that I've just talked about. And then umami. This is the kind of the latest, greatest taste that has been scientifically identified that we on our taste buds taste. And I liken it to something maybe we can identify more with as savory or rich. And umami in Japanese means good flavor. And so I'll show you some additional foods other than the mushroom, specifically cooked mushrooms give you that savory flavor in foods. I'm going to show you some other ones in a future slide. And then of course I have spices and fresh herbs, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So let's dive a little deeper with sweet food ingredients. Think about these. I'm going to give you a chance just to be glancing down at all these wonderful whole foods that you can introduce into your dishes. And think about it. Carrots are sweet when they're raw, but think about when you cook them, how much sweeter they become. And some of my favorite sweet, nutritious foods are things like roasted beets. If you eat a raw beet, which are super healthy for you, they can be a little earthy and a little off-putting to some people, but if you roast them, it releases the sugars naturally in the food and becomes so flavorful and wonderful. And then of course, caramelized onions are also some of my favorite. Salty food ingredients. I told you I was going to be talking about more than salt, but there are things where salt has been added to enhance a whole food, such as brined olives and sun-dried tomatoes and pickled vegetables and capers and miso. Miso is a fermented soybean paste and adds not only salty, but actually falls into the umami or savory category as well. Same with soy sauce can be used for umami. So some of these things do double duty as well. Seaweed, even things like celery, spinach, and chard, when it's either raw or cooked, add some salty effect to your foods. So you can add nutrients, fiber, and some vitamins and minerals and antioxidants from these wonderful plant foods, as well as giving you that flavor building mechanism to create luscious dishes. Sour food ingredients. Mentioned citrus already, which is the category of lemons, limes, oranges, grapefruit. But we can also introduce a wide variety of vinegar, white wine vinegar, red wine, balsamic. There are all sorts of vinegars out there, and they give that acidic quality. Pickled vegetables, tomatoes, and non-dairy yogurt. And then we have the bitter food ingredients. And you notice I have kind of this plethora of green veggies on the side here to demonstrate some of the healthiest foods, as I mentioned, come from dark leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables. They are cancer fighting, they are detoxifying, they are typically very low in calories, but very nutrient dense. So we want to incorporate these as much as we can on a daily basis. And these are some other examples of bitter food ingredients. Things like cabbage and cucumber and okra even. And then we have the savory food ingredients. And a lot of times people identify that umami rich quality with a meatiness, but you can get the same savory richness by introducing plants as well, such as I mentioned cooked mushrooms. But think about tomatoes when you cook them for a long time and reduce them down. Not only do you enhance tomatoes, actually, you can get more of the beneficial uh, qualities from the tomato, the lycopene, but it becomes more savory when you cook it. Roasted asparagus, sun-dried tomatoes, olives, capers, vegan Worcester sauce, and miso. And then finally, spices and herbs. If there's one thing you can do that's quick and easy and adds not only flavor, but boosts nutrition, is just adding a sprinkling of some spice out of your pantry or a fresh herb from your garden or from your fridge. Just making sure throughout the day you add a little bit of cinnamon in your oatmeal or a little bit of turmeric or ground ginger or whatever throughout your meals, you are going to be introducing a lot of powerful antioxidants, and they tend to be very anti-inflammatory as well. Another thing with spices and herbs, if you are a cancer survivor, if you are going through chemotherapy or radiation treatments, you may notice that you have some taste changes going on where things you maybe can't taste as well, or you have a metallic taste in your mouth. You can use spices and herbs to counteract that, as well as some of sour ingredients that I mentioned before as well. So keep that in mind. But spices and herbs are a great go-to. And just so you know, it doesn't end here. Our taste buds constantly change over time. And so as we get older or as we get exposed to different types of foods more frequently, our taste buds, what we consider very flavorful, will change over time. And our taste buds actually turn over typically every couple of weeks, the actual cells of our taste buds. And so here's a great little diagram that I would encourage you to visit cooksmarts.com for additional kind of kitchen help. And they put together this great flavor star. And you'll notice that we have the 5 tastes that I've already talked about, and I've talked about the whole foods that you can get them from. But these are ways we can combine them to either enhance the flavor or to balance the flavor. So for instance, something that is salty, if we combine it with something sweet, it enhances that flavor typically of something sweet. So I'm going to not pick on, but I'm going to choose dark chocolate, for instance. We want to limit that, but it's always super flavorful. If you get true dark chocolate that doesn't have a lot of added sugar or milk or that kind of thing, you can actually enhance it by a sprinkling of a little bit of large flake salt, and it just intensifies that chocolate. And there's some good benefits to chocolate. If you get good quality chocolate, it's very powerful antioxidants in there. And balancing, and we're going to learn some more about balancing, but you'll notice the dark arrows between these 5 tastes show you how if you have something that is sweet, if you add a little spice to it, it will balance the flavor. So if you add spice to sour, that will happen. Or if you add a little sour to bitter, and I'll use, for instance, dark leafy greens. A lot of times people struggle with the bitterness of, let's say, kale, raw kale. And so if you add a little bit of acidity to that kale and you massage it in, it's going to help neutralize that bitter flavor. So pay attention to the flavor star and visit cooksmarts.com to get some additional practical tips. Here is where I really want to dive deep onto flavor building. And I received information. I went to last month to the International Conference on Nutrition in Medicine. And there was this wonderful gentleman who, David Kamen, I'm giving him credit here, the Director of Consulting at the Culinary Institute of America. And he gave a great presentation on why we find food delicious. How do we make it more delicious using wonderful plants? And so here I just want to give you an example of there's that kind of a yin and yang effect when we think about food. So think about plant foods that might be crisp or bitter, things that are coarse. They kind of fall into this really strong area that we need to kind of then maybe balance out and kind of counteract with something that's has more of a calming or soothing effect. So if you add something, rich and sweet, it will intensify. Whoops, went too fast. It will intensify whatever you are working with and elevate the food flavor. So I want to give you an example to help this solidify in your mind what I'm talking about. So now's the next slide. So let's take the humble avocado. And hopefully the avocado is ripe, all right? But it doesn't have a whole lot of flavor. But we can make something, a recipe that's very simple and create something very luscious with that avocado. And that is what everyone's probably one of the favorite condiments in my household is guacamole. So let me show you what I mean. So we start out with a ripe avocado and the inside we place into a bowl, we remove the pit and the peel, and it should be soft, right? Okay, so we have one thing going, but in order to build flavor, we need more going on in this dish. So we may press it with a fork and make it nice and silky so that it has a great mouthfeel on our tongue. And then we introduce some sour, right? Typically it's lime juice, but you could also use lemon juice in guacamole. And so now we've taken something from, we've deviated from the orange side, the kind of softer side, I will say, and introduced a little bit of sour, a little bit of pizzazz to that avocado. And then a lot of times people add maybe some ground cumin, or maybe they'll add a little bit of spicy jalapeno or cayenne. And then they add a little bit of salt. And then they might chill it. And now we've created wonderful guacamole. And you could always add more things to it, like chopped tomatoes or some cilantro, fresh herbs. But I'm going to kind of end here with that. But I want you to think about what it's become. It's become rich. It's become kind of fresh. But also, if we introduce that guacamole, we don't want to just eat a bowl full of guacamole. We want to add nutrients and use healthy things to eat with that guacamole. So you might want to serve it with a warm dish like a bean burrito. And now that guacamole has become even more flavorful and it's become kind of soothing to kind of counteract that hot dish of a black bean burrito. So there, the humble avocado becomes wonderful guacamole. So some flavor building considerations I want you to be thinking about. It's not just our 5 tastes, but I tend to, when I look at something, when I start with a recipe or try to design a meal, I'm trying to consider several things. I want to think about, the smell of my dish, what it's going to visually look like. Is it going to be the sound? Is it going to be crunchy? Will I have something smooth to kind of counteract crunchiness going on? Is it cooked versus raw? It's fine during the summertime to have lots of raw foods, but I also like mix and match. I like to have a balance of cooked foods, raw foods with cooked. The mouthfeel, some crunchiness, but also the soothing richness, like I showed in the guacamole. And then texture variety, the color variety. Color really dictates all the wonderful different nutrients that the plant kingdom has to offer us. So today, what I'm going to demonstrate for you is a Mediterranean quinoa salad. We're coming to the end of summer. We've kind of gone into September, but it's still hot where I am. But this isn't just limited to the summer months. You can actually use this in the winter months, and you can introduce not just raw vegetables in this, you could add cooked vegetables. So I'm going to show you some different variations of this recipe, but it's a super versatile dish. So if there's ingredients in there that you don't have in your pantry, you don't like, you can swap them out for other things by thinking of those 5 taste categories. Emma posted in the chat box the PDF for the quinoa salad recipe. And so I'm going to be demonstrating that for you. And I just want to, before I move to my little kit cooking demo area, is just leave you with some thoughts. Okay, how can we boost nutrition when we build flavor in a dish? Let's summarize. We want to start with a fresh palette or canvas using whole plants or minimally processed plant foods. We want to try to kick to the curb highly processed foods because those overtake our taste buds and we don't get to really taste the wonderful flavors that whole foods have in the plant kingdom if it's being kind of just a secondary thought. So we want to start fresh. We want to introduce different plants through thinking about those 5 different tastes. We want to use different textures of plants. We want to color the plate with different colors because those different colors provide different nutrients and beneficial qualities to our bodies. And consider how temperature may enhance food sensations such as mouthfeel and aroma. Spice things up. Always add some spices and fresh herbs whenever you can. That's the easiest thing you can do. Taste with your heart and your tongue. So don't just be thinking about how something's going to be tasting on your tongue. Be thinking about how the food that you're putting on your plate and the meal you're creating, how it's going to service your body and how you can show love to other people. I think it's one of the best ways to show love to your family and friends is by making them great tasting food. So thank you for bearing with me as I gave that presentation. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace my spotlight onto the wonderful, colorful foods. All right. So here we are at my station, and I want to start the Mediterranean quinoa salad by showing you see all this wonderful color going on here, and they're going to give you different nutrients based on their colors, but there's also different mouth feels that's going to be going on here. And I'm going to walk you through how some of these plant foods, how they will taste if they are by themselves, and then how they work together to create and build flavor as we combine them. So the first step is starting out with actually some kind of bitter ingredients. And it's bitter because we are going to be leaving on the zucchini and cucumber, we are going to leave the peel on. And that tends to be, if you just take a bite of raw zucchini, it tends to be a little bit on the bitter side. So what I'm going to do is take a cup of quartered zucchini, and a cup of zucchini is about 1 medium zucchini. So that's why I'm showing you here, because sometimes when you take a recipe to the store, you're like, how many do I get? And you overbuy. So 1 zucchini of this size cut into quarters, and I'm going to put it into this medium-sized bowl. And then cucumber. Cucumber is lots of hydration, low in calories, but also it can be a little bit bitter because of the peel, but I'm leaving the peel on after I wash it because that's where a lot of the fiber and the wonderful antioxidants of a vegetable or fruit can be found. So I quartered the cucumber, and 1 cup cucumber is again about this size of a cucumber. So I have them both in the bowl, and all I'm going to do is add a 1/4 cup of white wine vinegar. And why I'm doing this is I am adding that acidity, that sour note, directly to these more bitter vegetables that will be in this quinoa salad. And I want it to touch everywhere and not get lost in just a dressing. I really want to kind of do a quick pickle. It's not a true pickle, but I want to cover all of the zucchini and cucumber to help neutralize that bitter flavor. And then I'm just going to add 1/8 of a tablespoon of ground black pepper. And I'm going to sit this aside so that it can give the opportunity to just be absorbed into the zucchini and cucumber. All right. Now I'm going to move on to kind of a more neutral, kind of my blank palette for this salad. And that's using some very nutrient dense, protein rich plant foods. So I'm pulling from, we would maybe associate quinoa as a grain. We treat it like a grain, but it's really an edible seed, and it's been around for thousands of years. It's high in protein per serving, and it has all the 9 essential amino acids in it. And if you're not familiar with quinoa, it's super tiny, these little edible seeds. I don't have any left in here, but this is a brand that you can find at any grocery store. I found that, I believe it's Safeway here in Arizona. And this actually is a pre-rinsed and ready to cook. And why they say that is a lot of times when you follow, for instance, this package of heirloom quinoa, which is black, it comes in black, red, different colors. It has an outside bitter kind of coating to it. So you need to rinse it before you start cooking with it to get rid of that really bitter note to it. But some of them are pre-washed, like that Bob's Red Mill. And then you cook it up very quickly. And I require 2 cups of cooked quinoa for this dish, but you could really use any grain or any other, like you could use Italian barley if you wanted. You just need to cook it. You could use couscous, which is traditional for Mediterranean cuisine. You could use something like a pasta like orzo in this dish as well. So that's how you can change it up based upon maybe what you have in your pantry. You could even use brown rice in this dish. You could also change the legume or bean that I have. I am using a can of rinsed and drained chickpeas in this because chickpeas kind of come from that region of the Mediterranean. You could use any bean. A white bean might be preferable because it's a little bit more neutral tasting than a black bean, let's say, or a kidney bean. So I would recommend maybe sticking with a white bean for the choice here. So it's 1.5 cups or a can, 15-ounce can of chickpeas rinsed and drained. So there is kind of this neutral palette going on here, and I want to amp up the flavor. So how am I going to do that? I am going to start by adding some color and some kind of hydrating pops of flavor. I'm going to use a cup of frozen peas that I've thawed and a cup of frozen corn that I've thawed and introduce it to this mix, because we want to not only add flavor, but get a variety of textures going on in here. And I love biting into, especially corn. It has this just hydrating pop of funness going on when I eat corn. So I really like corn in recipes. So now we've added a cup of frozen peas, a cup of frozen corn. I am going to add now a cup of red bell pepper. And a red bell pepper, it's about a medium size. This is a little bit large for me. I use maybe 3/4 of a large red bell pepper. So all you'll need for this recipe is 1 bell pepper, unless it's super tiny. But red bell pepper is super nutritious, loaded with vitamin C. A lot of times we think of citrus fruit, which true, that has vitamin C, but red bell pepper has lots of vitamin C. It also has some lycopene in it, some beta carotene. So go for red colored vegetables, especially red bell peppers, if you're looking for vitamin C. And it's going to add some sweetness. Even though it's a vegetable, it has natural sweetness in here. And we are wanting to build flavor and get balancing flavors in here to really elevate the dish. We are going to add some tomatoes. And this is the time of year, it seems like tomatoes are everywhere, fresh tomatoes. These are from actually my garden, a variety of different colors. You don't have to stick with red. If you want some yellow tomatoes, go for it, whatever color. And this is a cup of tomatoes. And these tomatoes naturally will release some of their juices that will bind in with the grain and add to the flavor of this dish, and it will mix with the dressing as well. So we're going to get some just natural liquids from the tomatoes to help with creating a dressing. Now we've added one kind of tomatoes, but remember, I want to add some richness and get some umami factor in here, some savory quality. So I'm going to be adding in some sun-dried tomatoes. I got about 8 to 10. I rehydrated them in some water, and I suggest covering them fully with warm water, and at least let them sit for 10 to 15 minutes or so, and then you can chop them. They're much more easily choppable when they've been rehydrated. And so I'm adding a half cup of sun-dried tomatoes. Again, savory, but also a different type of chew factor going on with those sun-dried tomatoes. Now we are going to add a half cup of scallions or green onions. That's about 2 medium size green onions. You could use any onion really in this recipe. I would probably gravitate towards something that's not too overpowering, but maybe if you like red onion, you could, and maybe just use a little bit less and mince it up really well. I like scallions because they're a little, not as potent in taste, or you could use something like a shallot, which is a little milder as well. But all the onions and garlic, they're from the allium family, and they are super, healthy for you. And specifically when it comes to cancer survival, cancer prevention, there's a lot of research out there that the allium family provides a lot of the ability to remove carcinogens from our body, and also very immune boosting. So try to work in some sort of onion or garlic throughout your day in your dishes. The next thing we're going to add, again, for a little salty and a little umami, are some sliced Kalamata olives. They could be any kind of olives. They could be green. They could be regular black olives. But I really like the deep note that olives give to this dish. And then we are going to add some fresh herbs. I have a basil plant that is going to town in my garden. I'm trying to use it wherever I can. So I'm using a 1/4 cup of fresh basil, but you could use parsley, or you could use whatever type of fresh herb that you think would work well in this recipe, but there's lots of color going on in there. So now I'm going to give it a mix, and I'm going to combine everything, and you'll start seeing this wonderful nutrition rainbow of wonderful plants. So color-wise, hopefully this is starting to speak to you a little bit, and you'll see it makes a nice large amount. And now I'm going to add my pickled cucumber and zucchini for more wonderful deliciousness. All right, well, we could kind of stop there and add maybe a little sprinkling of salt to it, but I am going to add even more flavor to this in a very quick way with a simple dressing. So let me just swap out. Get my station cleaned up just a tad and bring over the salad dressing ingredients. All right, so for the salad dressing ingredients, I'm just going to use very basic, simple, wonderful ingredients that will just enhance all the flavors and meld everything together and make it this cohesive grouping of deliciousness. And I'm going to start out with some lemon juice. And as I mentioned, loaded with vitamin C, and it's going to have that sour, acidic quality that we will want to introduce into this dish. And it calls for a half cup of fresh lemon juice. Now, if you're buying lemons, the standard equation, I guess you would say, is one lemon, about, either of these sizes, gives you about a quarter cup. So you'll need 2 lemons to give you a half cup of squeezed lemon juice. I always just keep my life simple as well. If I forget to get lemons at the store, I like to keep just fresh lemon juice in my fridge because I use it all the time, almost daily, adding lemon or lime juice. So I like to have a jar, a container of that in my fridge at all times. And I am also, from one of these, this is optional, so if you don't have a lemon, but if you do, I like to use lemon zest. And you could use a teaspoon, it calls for in the recipe. You could use more if you'd like. And a teaspoon, a nice healthy teaspoon, will be found from 1 lemon. Maybe you'll get, like I said, a little bit more, but don't waste it. Just use it all. And I am going to put it in there because the lemon zest adds just this extra heightness of freshness and brightness to the dish. So if I'm going to have fresh lemons, I don't want to waste any part of it. I'm going to use the outside lemon. Just make sure you wash it really well and dry it before you use a zester like this, a zesting plane. The next thing I'm going to introduce is Dijon mustard. This is, everyone probably, if you've come to all my cooking demos before, I almost use this all the time when I'm making savory dishes. And that's because it's kind of a chef's little secret ingredient to adding just that little bit X factor of yumminess to a dish. And so Dijon mustard, I am going to use, whoop, it popped. I'm glad it didn't pop all over my shirt. Let me just wipe off my hands here. We are going to use a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. And if you really love Dijon, you could add more if you want more of a mustardy taste, or just you could use less. And you can just choose the amount that works for you. But I find in this recipe, I don't want it to overpower everything, but I wanted to add that little bit of spicy zing that I like in the salad dressing. So I find a teaspoon is plenty. And we're getting down to the last couple of ingredients. We are going to add in a half teaspoon of salt. And a quarter teaspoon of garlic powder. Now you could use fresh garlic. And I was trying to make this simple and easy because sometimes people don't have garlic cloves on hand. But if you wanted to use fresh garlic, that would be super wonderful. It would be about 1 clove of garlic, a nice sized clove of garlic is equatable to a quarter teaspoon of garlic powder. But I figure most people have garlic powder on hand. So that's why I use that in this recipe. And then I just give it a quick whisk. Put this on here and I'll move this over. And the final thing to do, if you haven't already guessed, is we're just going to add the salad dressing into here, the big bowl. And remember, there was a quarter cup of white wine vinegar because this is a lot of salad and lots of nutrients going on here. But that quarter cup of white vinegar that was used for that quick pickle, quote unquote, for the zucchini and cucumber is also in here. The salad dressing, as well as the liquid naturally from the tomatoes. And then I am just going to show you how I like to serve it. So I'm all about how can I work in more different flavors, more different things, make it look beautiful. This is arugula, which is dark leafy green. It's also from the cruciferous family. And arugula has a nice peppery note to it. and it looks super kind of fancy with its little curly leaves. And so I put it on a bed of fresh arugula. You could also cook the arugula if you wanted. You could then add a little bit of different type of crunch factor. You could add some pumpkin seeds or pepitas on the top for a little bit of healthy fat source there, good omega-3s. And then you could use some paprika or smoked paprika to finish it off. And then I just have it served with some watermelon or a fresh, this is just a nice summer, early fall when the weather's still warm, nice dish. But you can do many different things with this dish. And so what I thought I would do at this point is maybe we stop the recording and we go to questions and answers, and I can further explain, maybe give some activities that people could chat with in regards to, let me come over here to my screen. So what I'd like here is to get some people engaged. You can, I think, unmute yourself if you'd like. You can raise your hand. You can put in the chat box. But what I'd like you to do is, with this recipe, how would you make it your own? How would you, maybe if this is Mediterranean quinoa salad, how could you make it a different kind of bent or ethnic cuisine like Mexican? What could you swap in and out? How could you make it for wintertime instead of summertime? I just thought we'd have some engagement about that, or I can answer questions as well. So.
And again, I want to say thank you so much to Chris and Emma. This has been an absolutely wonderful partnership that we've developed with them over the past couple of years now, I think it is. And I always feel like I learned something from these sessions. I like to cook and have been cooking from a very young age. So there's always something new and everybody gets to share in that. And I think it's a beautiful way to acknowledge who we are as people and our needs to nourish ourselves on so many levels. So I really appreciate it, Chris and Emma. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you, and right back at you. We love this partnership, and so between the Breast Cancer Resource Center and Rooted Santa Barbara County, you can check out our websites, our Instagram feeds, our Facebook pages, and we're always offering free classes whenever and however we can. So we thank you, and we cherish this partnership, Silvana. And Chris, thank you. That was, as always, just awesome. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.